Hello and welcome to Auspol Explained. I'm the long curly head host David, and today we're going to be talking about amendments. What is an amendment? Great question. An amendment is a change to a bill or law. That can be to insert, remove, or alter details, and can be a pretty common thing that happens when making laws. To learn more about the overall process of how laws are made in Australia, check out my previous episode called How Laws Are Made in Australia. It's pretty obvious to find. But this episode is specifically focusing on the amendment process. How does it work and... well, that's basically the only question that I'm going to answer. Basically, amendments happen in one of two ways, which is either in the passage of a bill partway through, or an amendment bill introduced to alter a pre-existing law. Let's start with amendments made during the passage of a bill. Step 1. A Member of Parliament introduces a bill and they're like, hey, this is a great idea about updating our environmental laws. Obviously, that's important. We all live in the environment. So members look at it, debate it, and they ask themselves like, hey, how will this affect things? Who will it affect? Is this going to work well to achieve the desired outcomes, etc., etc.? Members don't just launch right into trying and changing it though. There is a debate stage that happens, and then after that, they may choose to enter a specific stage where they can then introduce and debate amendments. Side note, this stage is either called Consideration in Detail or Committee of the Whole House, depending on which chamber it's in. They're basically very similar ideas, and it's not the most important thing to know what this stage is called, but if you're curious, that's what it is, and if you're looking up a bill and wondering where it is during the progress of its passage, that will help you understand it. Anyway, back to the explanation. Members will write up amendments in advance to propose. These are specific changes to the text. The debate may contain the why a bill should change. The amendment is how exactly it should be changed. Amendments also get debated and voted on. For an amendment to succeed, you need a majority of members to agree with it, so some pass and some don't. 45% is a great effort, but just like a test, that's not a pass. Now, most bills start in the lower house, which is where the government is formed by having a majority. In the federal parliament, that's the House of Representatives, and for the ease of simplicity, let's just stick with the federal parliament. So, usually the government can pass bills even if the opposition really hates it. That doesn't necessarily mean that the opposition goes, hey, here's a suggestion for an amendment, and then the government goes, too bad, suck it, just because they can. That's not productive and may come back to bite them later on down the line. The government may agree to amendments to its own bill after learning more about the topic, or due to public pressure, or because the opposition or crossbench make a good point. Parliament can actually be pretty collaborative and constructive at times, but this is also like the least energetic moment that you'll ever see in the chamber, and probably is not good watching on TikTok, so you probably don't get to see that. Once a bill passes the House of Representatives, it goes to the Senate, where the government almost never has a majority. So the options then for the bill are A. Enough senators are chill with it to pass it as is. B. The government needs to make amendments to get enough senators on board to pass the bill. Or C. The government can't get enough support and the bill fails. Usually what happens is option A or B. It's actually rare for option C to happen, but hey, not every idea is gold. And that's also why, by the way, you don't just go ha ha suck it at the people you might suddenly need to negotiate with mere weeks later. Usually, introducing a bill, debating and passing it, and then sending it to the next chamber can take months. It can be declared urgent and go through like real quick, like Sonic the Hedgehog, but most aren't urgent. So the government usually has plenty of advance notice that, hey, the opposition or crossbench isn't completely down to clown with this bill, and to get their support, the government will need to negotiate. So the government can sit down with senators or members outside of the chamber and go, hey now gang, I'd love this bill to pass, but like, you seem to have a few issues with it. What's it going to take to get you on board? How can we find a middle ground? The government and opposition make up most of the Senate. So if the government can get the opposition on board, then the bill can pass. But the opposition might be too opposed to the bill to negotiate. Boo! In which case the government needs to go to the crossbench. The crossbench isn't like one group. It's the term that you use to collectively refer to minor parties and independents together. So like One Nation and the Greens are both part of the crossbench, but obviously have some disagreements from time to time on a few things. So which crossbenchers the government negotiates with can vary from bill to bill, whatever works best for the bill at hand. This may require negotiating with multiple crossbenchers, not just a single minor party, to get the numbers required. For the sake of this example, let's make up a fictional party. Let's say the Senate is pretty evenly split on a bill, and for the government to pass it, it all comes down to whether or not they can get the support of the Bee Supremacy Party, whose platform revolves entirely around bees, which leaves them pretty quiet during debates about naval operations, but as this is an environmental bill, they're buzzing with excitements. The Bee Supremacy Party goes to the government and says, "I'll support this if you agree to spend $10 bazillion on subsidizing bees and bee farmers." To which the government responds, "Oh, honey, no, that's like way too much. And also a bazillion is not a real number. But counteroffer, how about an additional $200 million to protect bee habitats, supporting pollination programs and fighting bee parasites?" Then the Bee Supremacy Party goes, "You know what, that works. It's not what we asked for, but it's an improvement. And if we disagree now, then we get nothing. So we accept. Now we're in business." That's the joke. Anyway, now that the government has support of enough members, an amendment can be made and the bill can pass. Amendments can mostly be introduced in either chamber, and just like a relationship, also have to be agreed to by both involved before they can become official. So if a bill introduced in the House of Representatives is amended by the Senate, then it needs to go back to the House of Representatives for another debate and vote. If they can agree to the changes, then the bill succeeds. And if they don't agree, then it fails and the bill is defeated. As any member can introduce amendments, and Parliament has a diverse range of views in it, it's possible for there to be competing proposed amendments for the exact same clause. The opposition might think that clause 31B should be removed from the bill, the Greens might think it should be amended to include stronger protections for the environment, and the Bee Supremacy Party might go, 31 bees? That's not nearly enough for a hive.
Cool joke alert.
Members may all agree that the bill needs work to better achieve its intended goals, but disagree on exactly how is the best way to do that. But through debates and negotiation, one idea of the bill comes through above the rest. All proposed amendments are written down in the Hansard, which is the official record of parliamentary debates. It's basically a transcript of everything that's said. So if you're curious, not just about what amendments got included, but also what proposed amendments got voted down, you can search through the Hansard record on the parliamentary website. Okay, so let's go on to our second type of amendment, which is an amendment bill. A lot of bills passed aren't actually to make entirely new laws. Sometimes you just need to update an old one. So instead of scrapping the old one and throwing it in the bin, members just introduce a bill to amend the pre-existing act, or acts. An amendment bill can cover multiple. So you could introduce an amendment bill that is for the purposes to amend Section 71 of the Bee Management Act of 1967, Sections 2, 3, and 7 of the Anti-Wasp Act of 2003, and also to amend to repeal in its entirety the Honey Prohibition Act of 2025. And that bill will include all the details of what is to be changed and what text is to be inserted. And just like any other bill, that amendment bill has to go through the same stages of debate and then also can be further amended. How fun! There are plenty of old acts that have been amended over time to be different to their original. Take the Crimes Act of 1914, for example, which has been around since, you guessed it, 1914. Now, the clever scientists down at the Crimes Lab have invented a bunch of new crimes in the past century, so we gotta re-examine that law every now and then. There have been a ton of amendments over the past century to do with adjusting penalties, removing offences, adding offences, flipping offences upside down, and checking to see if the batteries are still fresh, inserting clauses about national security, adjusting police powers, and so on. The original act was like 25 pages, but the current version is in 3 volumes and hundreds upon hundreds of pages long, with way more crimes in it. And yet, McCavity, the mystery cat, has canonically managed to break every single one of them. When will he be stopped? Amendments have a few limitations. The biggest one is money. The government needs to spend money to provide services and do like government stuff, but it also isn't allowed to spend money without first passing what's called an appropriation bill through Parliament. Generally speaking, any member can introduce bills, but only a minister can introduce an appropriation bill. So if members want more money to be spent, they need to ask the government to make that change. Money bills can also only be introduced and amended in the lower house. So the Senate can't amend money bills for the ordinary annual services of the government or taxation bills. It can send a message back to the House of Representatives to say, hey, could you please consider changing it this way though? And it's up to the House to decide if it'll action that request. Though appropriation and taxation bills can only be for that sole purpose, so you can't amend them to include other details. The government can't be like, this is a bill to withdraw $10 billion for the purposes of protecting the environment, and then also make it a crime to shoot bees with a shotgun, or whatever. That would have to be included in the Crimes Act of 1914, where it belongs. Leave those bees alone! Which brings me to the last limitation, which is relevancy. So if you are to make a change, it has to be within the confines of what the bill is about. So while an environmental bill could be pretty broad, you can't just include a clause there about the import and export about third-rate fantasy novels. If you really want to do that, that can be introduced in a separate bill. Again, put that in the Crimes Act. And there you have it. To recap, members introduce and debate bills, and then there is a specific stage where amendments can be proposed and debated. Bills cannot become a law unless both chambers agree in full, so if a bill is introduced in the first chamber, it passes and goes to the second where it is amended, those amendments must then go back to the first chamber for further debate and a vote. Sometimes it's necessary for the government to negotiate with the crossbencher opposition to make amendments to a bill to get their support and pass it. And there are some limitations on what an amendment can do, namely there are limitations on how and who can amend money bills, and also it has to be relevant to the bill at hand. And amendments can be introduced partway through the debate of a bill, or can be introduced as an amendment bill to alter a pre-existing Act of Parliament. And there you have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed learning about how amendments work. Don't forget to comment down below what you would like to learn about next. Give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, share this with someone else so they can learn about how amendments work as well. Say my name as you walk in a circle 3 times, and then also, if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you're allowed. The link is in the description. Why don't you amend your spending habits to include sharing money with me to support free education for everyone? Thank you so much to those who already support me on Patreon. I appreciate it immensely. That's it from me. I'll see you next time.